Well, hello everyone. I'm super excited that you have joined the Kyle Ewald live podcast. I have my amazing friend Merilyn, and she's amazing. She's here to speak with us, and we're going to talk about how are you, Merilyn? How are you doing?
I am very good today and excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, today we are going to talk about really good topics. They are topics that are near and dear to my heart, but it's going to be amazing today. We're not going to be long, but this is the Kyle Ewald Live podcast, and this is just my opportunity to invite friends and professionals, just like I have today, business owners, pastors, whoever it is, to come onto this live podcast and really encourage you as the visitor, and hopefully help you with whatever you're going through. And we're not only going to talk about things like anxiety like we are today, but we also talk about business and marketing and the whole nine yards. And so in a couple of weeks or so, I'm going to interview a friend of mine who is a teenager, and he had just lost his dad. And so we're going to talk about different things like that. But today we are talking about dealing with anxiety along with handling it, along with how does it affect marriages. And so, Merilyn, if you could kind of give us a quick backstory about who you are and what your credentials are and all that kind of stuff, I think that would be amazing.
Sure. Again, my name is Merilyn Houghton Marriott. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in psychology. I have been a college professor. I speak professionally at churches and women's groups, and I'm licensed by the state of Texas to do therapy. And I have had probably 6 practices across the state of Texas, all of them successful. And it's been a really good life. If I could do anything with my life on earth, I would hope that God would help me help someone else. That is my passion, is to help someone else with whatever they're going through.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I love that. That's so awesome. Well, the way I found Merilyn is our church, New Covenant Church. It's a local church that I go to here in Houston. We hosted a marriage conference, and our pastor invited Merilyn to come speak about handling marriage, and especially if you're dealing with things like anxiety or whatever you're dealing with, how does that happen? I have a couple of questions for you, Merilyn. I want to
Okay.
get to our first one. And if you are watching live, which I see there's a lot of you on, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, I'm going to try to get to them. We're going to ask a couple of questions and then we'll go from there. So, Merilyn, I want to know what kind of different types of anxieties are there? I just found out that there's not really one type of just
No,
anxiety.
no.
My wife deals with anxiety in a certain way, and I deal with anxiety in a certain way. And so, can you kind of give us a quick example of the different types of anxieties? And maybe someone out
Sure.
there watching doesn't really know they have anxiety, but what they're dealing with.
Yes. Well, there is a situation specific anxiety. Just for a tiny example, I got a little anxious right before you called and started the show, but it's the kind of anxiety that goes away the second you hit live. We are cool.
Yeah.
And that's going to go. As a matter of fact, it's already gone away. That's not going to bother me later. That is not something that's going to interfere with my life. Then there's a kind of anxiety that's not situation specific. There is anxiety that's a little worse than the situation specific anxiety. It's an anxiety that bothers you 2 or 3 times during the day. But then there is GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and it is sad. It is heartbreaking. I know I've had so many clients that when they wake up in the morning, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, good morning, Lord. And some people wake up in the morning and they go, oh, and then they feel
Yeah.
that periodically through the day. That is so sad when somebody is just haunted by anxiety. And that is not something, it can get better with talk therapy, The little, the sporadic anxiety here and there, it could probably be taught or can be handled with talk therapy, which is what I love doing. I've given my life to that because I feel like I've helped a lot of people. But then when you get to generalized anxiety disorder, when somebody suffers all the time, then we need something, clonazepam. There's several medications. I don't want to take time naming them, but there's several medications. Now, the one thing you have to be careful with, if you're going to take, and we're not talking about depression today, we'll talk about that another day. If you're taking an antidepressant, you cannot ever get addicted to an antidepressant. I mean, you might stop taking it and you're depressed again, but you're never going to get addicted to that. If you take anxiety medication, you need to take it exactly as prescribed and not one bit more, because you can, over time, if you up your own medicine without doctor's approval, you can get addicted to anti-anxiety medication. However, you can also get addicted to living a life of hell.
Yeah.
If you're so against medication, and I know some people are. I told this at your church where you were talking about, I had one gal say, well, if I start anxiety medicine, am I locked in for life? And I had a mirror hanging on the wall. And so I took the mirror down and held it in front of her face. And I said, well, you could live like this the rest of your life. She said, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. No, and when I first I've never been a type that has ever dealt with anxiety, at least that I didn't know of. And so I've always been kind of free. I would go and travel to South Africa, to Guatemala. I would do everything. I mean, I've been pretty good. Well, I got married with my wife, and amazing woman of God. And I started noticing little things, like we would drive. I'm not going to try to open up everything, but we would drive from like Dallas to Houston, and she would start getting a little bit of anxiety. And I didn't understand that. And it wasn't until later on that, I was flying from Dallas to Houston on a private plane for a business trip. And I started noticing that I started getting a little bit of anxiety, and it got worse. And then before I would preach, it started getting worse and different things like that. And so I know that there was different ones. Let me ask you this. And someone like me, or someone who's out there who is having an anxiety moment, right? They don't have medication to be able to use. What advice do you have for them of how do you deal with that anxiety moment without medication?
Sometimes you don't have access to medication and you need help right then. The quickest, I could call it a quick and dirty measure, but it works. I teach my clients to center themselves with breathing. And I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about hold it and down, and in between breaths say, I'm okay. I'm not dying. I know by the fact that I'm here, I've lived through all of these before. And you just keep breathing. And it's, some people would boo-hoo that, but if that's what you've got at the moment is your breathing and telling yourself you've gotten through all of these before, so that's a good sign you're going to get through it again. It's a powerful tool. If you learn I can do that in a dental chair. No one likes to go to the dentist, but I sit there and I breathe. And if they have a problem with that, that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you know, I don't take any medication for anxiety. I have done, I think, pretty well at making sure that if I'm having a moment, I just need to chill, get my own space, and just kind of relax. And that usually helps me. But when does someone like me or someone who's dealing with anxiety need to start actually getting professional help, coming to a psychologist like yourself and getting help? How do you know that?
Well, it's a real simple answer. When your anxiety starts interfering with your daily life and routine, if you start snapping at your spouse, snapping at your child, if you feel like the world's starting to cave in on you, and again, very simply, if it interferes with your daily life and your daily routine, then you're suffering and you need to go and first try to see if you can work it out with talk therapy. That's always my favorite, is if we can talk it out. I
Yeah.
had a gal here this week that just had a aha moment, that her childhood was what was wrong with her marriage. And, it's wonderful to lead people down, to color in the dots where she had no idea why she was so mad at her husband and afraid he would leave her. It's
Yeah.
because her father left her mother when she was a young child and she didn't trust any man.
Yeah.
But we had a breakthrough.
That's so good. So let me ask you this: do you think that anxiety is caused by surroundings, or how you grew up, or do you really believe that it's genetics, or is it both?
It's both. If you have a mother, a grandmother, who has a significant anxiety disorder, you have a 50% greater chance. I'm sorry, but you do. You have a 50% greater chance of having anxiety. That can be true of some disorder, but anxiety in particular, it's just real genetic. But somebody that had no anxiety in their family, you let something horrible happen to them, like maybe even a rape or a molestation or something like that. There's no genetics there, but oh my goodness, they can be bound by anxiety and they can become acrophobic, afraid to leave their apartment or their home. And thank God nothing like that has ever happened to me, but I can understand how that could happen.
Yeah, yeah. What is your hands-on tips? And we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but what is your hands-on tips about how to give? What do you give your clients about being proactive about their anxiety? What are some hands-on tips that you can give them?
Well, you hear these so many places, but it still works. You need to eat right. You need to care what you put in your body. You need to drink water. Just you have to check your diet. You have to check so many things to make sure you've leveled out medical problems. And that's one thing I do when some people come and they have these symptoms and they don't want to admit that it could be any kind of psychological thing, because my daddy didn't have no problem and I didn't have no problem, and my boy sure don't have no problem. I mean,
Yeah,
when you go through something like that, you just have to first, I send them to the doctor. If they
yeah,
don't believe they have any kind of anxiety disorder, I send them to the doctor and I level the playing field.
yeah,
But when they come back and said, there's nothing wrong with me except my anxiety, then I get out the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychological Behaviors, and I start reading the symptoms down. And they go,
yeah.
oh, yeah, okay, that's me.
Yeah, that's so good. And then a couple more questions. So, there's a lot of times that people say, "Hey, do I just fight through anxiety, or is anxiety something I just need to submit to and just deal with for the rest of my life?" I mean, what is your thoughts for someone who literally says, "Hey, do I fight through this constantly because I'm wore out, I'm tired, I'm lonely, or do I just submit to it and just kind of let this be a part of my life?"
No, no. God said in his word that we were to have life and have it more abundantly. An anxiety filled life is not an abundant life. It is
Yeah,
just hanging on to the edge. And I don't ever think of God as wanting us hanging on to the edge of our life when he put everything here for us. He put love and he put joy. And why should we submit to anxiety? I mean,
yeah,
if you need to get professional help, call.
yeah.
And if you need medication, I mean, it's not an irrevocable decision. Once you start an antidepressant, or we're talking about today, an anti-anxiety medication, if it doesn't go well and if it doesn't help you, don't keep taking it.
Yeah, yeah. How do you believe that anxiety affects, and this is my last question, but how do you
Okay.
believe that anxiety affects marriages in particular, both young and old? I mean, what do you see a lot of times with marriages and dealing with anxiety?
Anytime one person in the marriage has an anxiety problem, you both have anxiety problems. It's just like if one of you had cancer, both of you would be involved in the care. And so it can affect a marriage in every way. I mean, just say what you told me a while ago. You said when you feel a little bit of anxiety, you need to go to your space
Yeah.
and settle down and go to your space. Well, what if your wife doesn't want you in there settling down with your space? She wants to talk to you about dinner, or she wants to talk to you about your little girl or whatever. So the most important person, no, the most important thing a person can give their spouse is an opportunity and a platform on which to speak. So if that does, don't if that doesn't bother your wife, and I don't know if that bothers your wife, I'm just using it for an example. But
Right.
if it does, say, honey, what's wrong? And if she says nothing, it's not nothing. Let me tell you, it's
Yeah.
not nothing, it's something. And so if she says, I don't know why you go in there and pull away from me, let her talk about that and then say, well, let me try to see it through your eyes. It helps me. And if
Yeah.
you tell her it helps you and it explains, I have a feeling she will learn to accept that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
And
good.
it's not just the other spouse that suffers. I have written two books. One is called The Children of Main Street, and the other is God Bless the Child. They're available on Amazon or through my website. You can get them either place, and they are all about the inside of a therapist office, inside a mental health clinic, and they are both about the way anxiety, or not just anxiety, any behavioral disorder in the family affects the children, and we need so badly. I mean, that's one reason to get help if you
Yeah.
have a lot of anxiety in it of itself, so it won't trickle down to your daughter, so
Yeah.
that so that she won't think, what's wrong with daddy, or what's wrong
Yeah.
with mommy, because believe me, they're watching.
So good, so good. So yeah, I mean, you pushed your book. I love that. If hey, listen, everyone who's watching this, wherever you are watching it from, I want to encourage you. Click the link here below. Get this book. It's or these books. Okay, they're
Yeah.
incredible. And I want to talk about one more thing. We were.
Okay.
So for people out there who are struggling with anxiety or just dealing with just life, right? I now know that you do online therapy, much like this,
I
where
do.
you'll get on a video chat literally at any point of the day, any time of
Mhm.
the day. You can literally contact you. Tell me a little bit about that, and I'll also put right here below how to contact you if someone is interested in online video therapy, phone therapy, whatever it is. I think there's a power in that, even to text and say, hey, I'm going through something and what do I
Mhm.
need to do? Just having someone who's there. And hey, by the way, she's a licensed psychologist. That's amazing. So tell us, while the number's down here, write down this number, send her a text, call her. But tell us, how much does something like that cost? What does that look like? Tell me about that.
Well, I've always been called to work with God's people, although you do not have to be a Christian for me to be your therapist. I've been asked 1,000 times, are you a Christian therapist? And my answer is, I'm a Christian and I'm a therapist. And I have realized recently, even before COVID-19, I've realized that I can reach so many more people if I can do it where on their schedule. They don't have to leave home. They don't have to get dressed if they don't want to. I mean, they have to have clothes on, but they don't
Yeah.
have to get dressed up like you would do if you were going to see a therapist. And you're welcome if you're local to make an appointment here in my home office. But this I am doing at a very discounted rate. I check the rates if people don't have insurance, and the first session was $250, and the sessions after that were $150, and that's wonderful. I used to make a lot of money when I had the big clinic with the secretary and the file clerk and all the people who worked for me, but I just feel like that not everybody can afford that. And I just have decided to do it at a rate of $60 an hour, just
Wow.
trying to help people that maybe could never pay $250 an hour. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and so it's just another way with my attempt to bless people with my life.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, that's incredible that you are willing to go that low, $60 per hour. That's incredible. So if you are out there and you are struggling and you're saying, "Hey, listen, I don't know what to do anymore." I mean, $60 an hour just to be able to talk and work it out professionally, talking to a psychologist, that's incredible. And so if you are out there and that's what you need, I want you to click this or write down this number, screenshot this. If you're watching it right now, screenshot this and text or call her, and she'll get you set up with her team of being able to get there and all that. We have a couple of someone I know, we have Carmen. She left a comment. She says, I loved God Bless the Child. I recommend it.
That's the second book.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And here's another comment she left. I think God Bless the Child
helps give insight, so you stop and think before speaking or judging people.
Yeah.
You never know what someone has been through. Amen.
Yeah. Amen.
It's a great book. Go into order, Children of Main Street. Good.
Amen. 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 Well, that is awesome. Hey, listen, I want to thank you so much for joining me here, Merilyn. You have been absolutely amazing, and I want to do more of this. Maybe we can make this something regular. I don't know. Maybe
I would love it.
Once a quarter. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. But hey, listen, thank you so much for everyone watching. This is the Kyle Ewald Live podcast, and I want you to join in. I'll give you more announcements of more shows that we're doing, and I pray that we will see you soon. I love every single one of you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.